Hey guys, this is the Mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today. I'm going to be responding to some of the feedback I received pertaining to the post that I created yesterday, because this platform, both the platforms that I had, were created in order to give different perspectives on situations, in order to cultivate opportunities for discourse or discussions and learning. So how can we learn from the characters on this show? What can we learn from this show itself? I was not going to start my channel for the sake of just having mindless gossip, because that's not interesting to me. I was going to talk about Ariane and Martell. I'm probably going to do that later on in this particular commentary. But yesterday I stated that Melody not inviting Destiny and Tisha to her party while inviting Kiki, that's a microaggression. I didn't delve in too much into it because it was pointless to me and it didn't resolve anything. And I knew there was going to be a bunch of debates about Melody's right to do whatever she wanted to do. So some of the comments, a lot of the comments said that Melody has the right to do whatever she wants. It's her house. She doesn't have to think about other people's feelings and how her actions affect other people. And that is true. That's fair. Melody has just as much right to do whatever she wants to do in her house, fundamentally. I'm not talking about morally. I'm talking about fundamentally. Melody has a fundamental, inherent human right to do whatever she wants to do. But I wanted to make sure that there weren't any biases in the audience, meaning I wanted to make sure that the people were not giving Melody more rights than they were giving the other cast members. The point of me doing that is to ensure that we're all looking at things from an objective perspective. We're not allowing our personal feelings to color our thought processes about the things that people do on this show. So I created a poll, and the purpose of the poll was to find out if there were any biases in the audience, as well as get people to think about what they were telling me, which is Melody has the right to do whatever she wants to do. So I said in my post, from a bird's eye view, you have to be careful about giving your haters the ammunition to attack your character. We're all autonomous human beings with the right to do whatever we want without consideration of the consequences to ourselves or other people. This is why God doesn't stop us from doing things we regret later. Free will is the law of the land. From the options below, select which persons have the right to do whatever they want in their lives, regardless of how their actions will affect or be perceived by other people. And this was low-key a trick question, because inherently we do all have fundamental rights to do whatever we want to do. It is interesting that Martell got 1% of responses, Melody got 27%, Ariane got 0%, which is interesting. Martell, Melody, and Ariane got 1%, and all of the above got 70%. I kind of had two of the same options to determine whether or not the language had an impact on the selections, and it did. So the fact that Martell, Melody, and Ariane were the same option, they only got 1% of responses because people do not want to admit that Martell and Ariane have the right, just as much right to do whatever they want to do as Melody does. So I put all the above to kind of give you guys an opportunity to select all the choices, right? Because that's also true. Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't allow me to do more than 5 options. So I wanted to put none of the above as well, but I didn't have any space for that. But I received one comment that was perfect, and this is exactly what I wanted someone to say. An audience member named C. said, "The unfortunate truth is that we all indeed have free will and therefore the perceived right to do what we choose. We do not, however, have the inherent right in making our choice to cause someone else harm. That is why we have a system of civil laws. Unfortunately, we do not have a universally agreed upon system of moral laws. In that vein, I could choose none of the above in your poll because one's rights may end where harm to another person begins, and this is exactly the answer that I was looking for." This is the response I was looking for. Yes, Melody has the right to do whatever she wants at her house. But if her goal is to have peace, right? And to not create opportunities for conflict, confusion, chaos, and contention in her life, should this party have happened? Number one, should she have invited Destiny and Tisha to this party? Number two, should she have invited Kiki to this party? Number three, and number four, would this party have been any different if Kiki weren't there? Nobody expects Destiny and Tisha to come to this party. But if your goal is to maintain your peace, not have to argue and fight and bicker over every little thing, not to create opportunities for conflict and contention that causes more drama, if that's the goal, was that goal accomplished? We have spent several episodes talking about this party that did not have to happen, where Kiki did not have to be invited. Destiny and Tisha not being invited would have sent enough of a message. But the fact that Kiki was invited, now there is an excuse for people who don't like Melody, for people who are on Team Tisha, whatever the case may be. Now there's an excuse for Melody's choices to backfire and be used to prove that she is someone who creates drama. Which is why after the show, I read somewhere that Stormy and Melody were trying to explain production issues and things like that when it comes to editing the show and the party itself. Nobody said Melody doesn't have the right to do what she wants to do, but her actions have consequences. We all have the right to do what we want to do. Ariane felt like she had the right to fall in love with a married man because, number one, Martell was lying to her. Number two, she didn't owe Melody anything. She wasn't Melody's friend. That's her moral compass. That's her individual subjective moral compass. So it becomes complicated when we say we have the right to do whatever we want to do. We all do have the right to do whatever we want to do. That's why God doesn't stop us from doing anything or making mistakes. Sometimes we get warnings and we listen to them or we don't. But God doesn't stop us from doing the wrong thing morally, right? We saw that with Martell and Ariane. They had the right to cheat if they wanted to because they're human beings. They have a fundamental human right to do what they want. However, that doesn't mean you should do it because now you're breaking moral codes. Now your actions have consequences and they're affecting the people around you negatively. This is like a woman who says, I don't want any more drama in my life. I want peace and love and kindness. And then she dates a man that is violent, who's a thug, who is broke, who has emotional issues. He's going to bring drama into her life, which is in contradiction to what she said she wanted. So the actions are not meeting the outcomes. In our community, we have an issue with thinking about the consequences of our actions, especially when we're younger. So the teachable moment in this particular episode is just because you have the right to do something, you're entitled to do whatever you want in your life, with your party, with your friends. You're entitled to do whatever you want. But if there are specific goals and outcomes that you have for your life, the actions should be in alignment with that. So not inviting Destiny and Tisha, that's fine because there would have probably been an argument at the party if they had been invited anyway. That's not the issue. The issue is now, did Kiki have to be there too to add insult to injury? Not because Melody wants to accommodate people who don't fuck with her like that. Not because you want her to tiptoe around other people's feelings who don't care about her. That's not the point. How is this party protecting Melody's peace? Did this party do more harm than good for Melody? I mentioned a few weeks ago that it was a nice party. Like Melody wanted to hang out with her girlfriends. She was going through a lot with Martell. All this stuff happened, right? The reunion was happening, had already happened. There was a lot of trauma associated with the reunion. It's fine to kick it with your girls, and I wouldn't blame her for not inviting Destiny or Tisha. But that's still a microaggression. You're all invited to this party except these two people. That's going to cause more conflict. But she still had the right to do it, right? She had the right to have her own party in her own house. However, if the goal is to have peace, is to maintain peace and order in your life, then are your actions in alignment with that? So it's not about judgment. It's not a moral judgment. This is about us having to think about the things that we do in accordance to the goals we want to reach. If you don't want drama in your life and you want peace and love and prosperity, whatever, There are certain things that you avoid doing that are unnecessary so that you can maintain the peace and order. This party reopened some wounds with Kiki and Tisha, right? So the party is now affecting a relationship between family members, okay? This party affected Miss Wanda and Kiki's relationship. This party exacerbated the issues between Destiny and Melody and Tisha and Melody, which is why when they had this event, the Galentine's event, nothing essentially was resolved. So I'm not saying that Melody doesn't have the right to do what she wants to do with her house, with her life, with her friends, with her money, with her time, with whatever. But if your goal is to maintain peace and to create peace for yourself, forget everybody else, for yourself, then was this party worth it? If you do a cost to benefit analysis of having Kiki at this party, did she have to be there? She didn't have to be there to accomplish the same goal of hanging out with your girlfriends because Kiki didn't go to parties before. So what's the point of inviting her now? People kept sending me messages stating that I should consider the fact that Kiki posted receipts about how far back she goes with Melody and Melody inviting her to parties before. I already knew that before I made my post. That still doesn't negate the fact that she didn't have to be there, right? If the goal is to have peace, then why invite your enemy's cousin to a party that she's not invited to? Kimmie even acknowledged this. She's not here, so she shouldn't even be talked about, period. That's number one. But number two, even if Kiki did not talk about Tisha at all, the fact that she was there was an act of aggression. That's just facts. Whether it's overt or covert, right? Whether it's passive aggressive or not. The having a whole party and saying, you're not invited, that's an act of aggression. Does she have the right to make that act? Yes, she does. She's a human being. She has the right to have her own friends, her own party, her own life, her whatever. Nobody says she doesn't. However, her actions have consequences. Just like Martell's actions have consequences. Just like Ariane's actions have consequences. And I want the women in our community to understand that we all have rights to do what we want to do. We can date the kind of man we want to date. We can wear what we want to wear. We can eat what we want to eat. We can do what we want to do with our lives. But there are consequences for that. Eating what you want to eat may cause health issues. Okay? Dating who you want to date may cause problems in your life. Wearing what you want to wear around a bunch of men who don't respect you, that also causes problems. Because you don't live by yourself. We have to consider the people around us. Because we live in a society and a community where we don't want other people to infringe on our rights. So we should not do things to infringe on their rights too, or to offend other people unnecessarily, or to cause conflict. Melody not inviting Destiny and Tisha to a party was a way of protecting her peace because she knew that them being there would have caused more conflict. That's not the issue. Now Kiki's involved too, unnecessarily. So yes, she can do what she wants to do. Nobody is saying she's a bad person now for having this party. This is not about judgment. This is about objectively assessing someone's behavior to see if it's in alignment with the outcomes that they say that they wanted. Because we have watched, this is the problem. The problem that I'm having with the show is there's so much pettiness and conflict. The past several episodes have focused on this petty, dumbass party. That wasn't necessary, but it's like content for the show. The party wasn't necessary. So now Kiki has issues with Tisha because of the party. It's like, are you adding more fuel to the fire that shouldn't be there in the first place, right? You cannot have listened to my content over the past several months and believe that I don't think that Melody has the right to do whatever she wants to do to protect herself and maintain her peace. I have expressed this ad nauseum on this channel and my other channel. For the people who don't know, I have been talking about this and defending Melody for months, right? I understand what she's going through from a 360-degree perspective because we have similar personalities and modes of thinking, but we don't act the same way because we're not exactly the same and we've been conditioned differently. And we were raised in different environments. We've had different types of people around us in our lives and we have different goals and objectives. It is what it is. But I understand Melody's right to do what she wants to do. I understand Martell's right to do whatever he wants to do. I understand Ariane's right to do whatever she wants to do. A woman who wants to date a man who's a criminal, she has the right to do that. But don't complain when the criminal does criminal things to you and your children. You can do whatever you want to do. It may seem like an extreme case, but it's along the same lines of thinking. Nobody can tell me what to do. I can do whatever I want, and you can, but there are consequences to your actions. If the outcome of your decisions is more drama for you, there's only one or two reasons for this. One, you like drama, or number two, you were not aware of how your actions were affecting other people because you weren't considering them, because you wanted to do what you want to do. Both can be accurate. My point is not to judge Melody and say she should not have done this and that and the other. That's not the basis of my argument. The basis is just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something, because it causes more unnecessary conflict with the people who are around you. If the goal is to build your brand and to not be associated with drama, because the first 2 seasons and 3 seasons people were calling you a mean girl. They were saying that Melody is similar to Martell. They both like drama. They both like starting mess. People were saying this in the comment sections for season 1, 2, and 3. So I started my channel to advocate on Melody's behalf because I knew what she was going through, to explain some of the reasons why she was so gnarly towards other people. Okay? Why she didn't have any patience for anybody. I explained this. But like I said, I can respect her humanity enough to say this is not something that I would have done. Not to mean that, oh, now she's bad, now she's wicked, now you don't support her anymore. No, one or both can be true. This is why in our community we have a difficult time being critiqued about anything. Our elders can't tell us shit because we think we can do what we want to do with no consequences, or we think we can do what we want to do and then blame other people for the consequences of our actions. This is why Kevin Samuels has so much followers, because a lot of men think that women want to do what they want to do and then they want to blame other men for the consequences of their choices and partners, and vice versa. Men want to date who they want to date, right? They want the big booty model, but then they get mad when the big booty model takes their money because that's what they wanted them for in the first place. You can do what you want to do with your life, but your choices have to be in alignment with the outcomes that you want. So you can't complain about not having peace in your life, but then you're fostering situations that are not creating more peace. This comment by C. Dot, I don't know who C. Dot is. She said perfectly exactly what I was hoping somebody else would get from this commentary. It wasn't about judging her. It's about avoiding conflict unnecessarily. It's not about doing things because you didn't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Okay, listen. Martell had the right to cheat on Ariane because, according to him, he had the right to make himself happy and do whatever he wanted to do to make himself happy, regardless of how it affected the people around him. That was his choice. And inherently, he's correct. We all have the fundamental right. I didn't say moralistic. I didn't say social. I didn't say religious. I didn't say political. I said we have a fundamental human right bestowed upon us by God to do what we want to do. That's why God doesn't stop us, quote unquote, the proverbial God doesn't stop us from doing anything that we want to do. The only thing stopping us is our conscience or our thoughts about how our actions will affect other people, our considerations of the people in our environment. That's the only thing stopping most of us, our conscience or the considerations of how people will perceive us if we take certain actions. I'm going to give you guys an example. There are 2 women and there's a man who's married. One woman may say, there are 2 women attracted to a married man. One woman may say, I have the right to do what I want to do, but I don't want to do it because I don't want to hurt his wife and I don't want to hurt myself. So I'm not going to cheat with this married man. The other woman, like Ariane, would say, I want this married man. I don't care if he's married or not. I don't owe the wife anything. It's all about me. Right? I don't care about the consequences of my actions. I don't care about how my actions will affect his children. It doesn't matter. He came on to me. It's all his fault. I can do what I want with my body. I don't owe anybody anything. Both are true. Both are options. We all have options to do what we want to do on a fundamental human level. That does not mean that we should do it because the outcomes are not desirable in some cases. So I'm not saying that what Melody has done is comparable to what Martell and Ariane has done, because I know I'm going to get those comments too. I'm not saying that. But fundamentally, we all have choices to do whatever the hell we want to do with our lives, with our bodies, with our minds, with our friendships, with the things we own and property we own. That's fine. We can do that. But we have to consider how our actions affect other people. If Melody asks herself, what would happen if Kiki came to this party and I did not invite Destiny or Tisha? What answer do you think she heard in her mind? I know she asked herself this question because Melody's a thinker, right? She overthinks, she says. So when Melody thought about inviting Kiki to this party, she thought about all of the potential outcomes that would happen if she invited Kiki and not Tisha. Kimmie pointed it out as soon as she was there. Like, yo, why? What's going on? Are we talking about Tisha if she ain't here? Why? Even when she was inviting her, I think the scene where she was talking to her in that restaurant and they were eating together, talking to Kimmie. Kimmie was like, well, you're not going to invite her. I think this is the case, but I could be wrong. Kimmie was like, okay, that's kind of sketchy to not invite Destiny and Tisha. And Kimmie is very cognizant of other people's experiences because she is an Aquarius. Most Aquarians have the ability to objectively remove themselves from their own desires per se. Not the selfish ones, but the ones who are evolved and healthy. That is a sign of the friendships, of organizations, of community. It's opposite Leo, which is self-centeredness. So she's an Aquarius from what I saw. I could be wrong. Most Aquarians have the ability to be diplomatic in relationships. More so than Libras, in my opinion. They can take a step back and see things from a bird's eye view in a way that would benefit everyone as a whole. That's why Kimmie doesn't really pick sides like that, because she can see things from all perspectives. Even though she said Martell was a good guy and he was not, she was just being fair to him because that's how most Aquarians think, and that is why a lot of people have problems with them personally, because a lot of times Aquarians are so objective that they don't pick sides. And so when you want loyalty from them, in that regard, you're not going to get it. It's just going to be, well, to be fair, they're always fair to a fault. And so people close to them may feel betrayed when they don't choose their personal friendships over their associations with the collective. Anyway, that's another conversation. But when they were at the Galentine's event, right? And Melody called Kiki, right? And I think Kiki asked, what did I say? Something like that. What did I say about Tisha? And Kimmie said, to me, you said too much for somebody who wasn't there. You were talking too much about somebody who was not there. Kimmie said this. Now, production probably cut out some of the conversation, but Kimmie was there and she was concerned, or she had the foresight to see that this would cause more conflict. Now, to get on Kimmie's case, she shouldn't have told, I'm not going to say shouldn't have. If she had not told Tisha about this party in the first place, then this wouldn't have happened the way that it did. But Kimmie did have the right to tell her sister-in-law what was up, but at the same time it caused more drama because Kimmie didn't give enough context for the conversation that was happening either. So now there's room for interpretation based on Tisha's personal feelings about Melody at that time, which caused more conflict. But like I said, we all have the right to do what we want to do. If we don't consider how our actions affect other people, we're going to end up like Ariane and Martell, dealing with the karma of our actions. So I'm not trying to say that Melody should not have had the party because she had a moral obligation and duty to protect the people around her more than herself. That's not what I was saying. My point is, did this party accomplish a goal? What was the goal of this party? If your goal is peace, that didn't happen. If your goal is drama, then that happened. So as somebody who is supportive of Melody, who's been supportive of Melody from season 1, I want her to consider how her actions are affecting her brand and how people perceive her. This is sort of the conundrum that she has and other members of the cast have. I talked about a few weeks ago the fact that I think that production is manipulating the audience and the cast. So should Melody take into consideration the fact that she's on a public platform and people are going to scrutinize her actions every single week? Should she consider how her actions are affecting not only the people around her, but the audience itself. Because there's two things. It's a possibility. She could not care, right? I don't care about how these people think about me. I don't care about these people liking me, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Melody is very concerned about public perception, okay? So if you have a bunch of people who don't like you off GP because they like Martell, they like Ariane, they like Tisha, whatever. If you have a bunch of people who want to see you do something wrong or who want to see you fail, do you now have to modify your actions to avoid being judged harshly by the public? This party was an opportunity for Melody's haters to have an excuse to say, I don't like her. She's a mean girl. She's a bitch. She causes trouble. She's just like Martell. A lot of women and people have said that Melody is just like Martell. They both like drama. They both like conflict, right? And so, if she doesn't want to be perceived a certain way, should she modify her actions because she doesn't want to be seen as a troublemaker, since she knows that there will be people who say that Martell should have cheated on Melody. He was justified in cheating on Melody because of Melody's unlikable personality. A lot of people don't like Melody's personality. So does she now have to accommodate people in the audience who don't like her for her personality by doing things that are not natural to her? Meaning this party. She may have been a person who wanted to have a party, but now it's going to be perceived a certain way because of public scrutiny. It's a complex issue. It's not a simple issue, right? It's not just about, I want to do what I want to do. Now, because you're a public figure, you're going to have to consider how your actions are affecting the audience's perception of you because your brand is associated with the show. Stormy will too. And then you're going to have to consider how production is going to edit this show in order to get more ratings and more drama. All of those things are going to have to be taken into consideration because you are now property of the public. This is what happens when you become a celebrity, in a sense. The public thinks that they own you. I wasn't saying that Melody should do or not do anything. What I was saying is that, as a warning, her actions could be perceived as being messy. If she wanted to be messy, then she accomplished her goal. If she didn't want to be messy, then something should have been changed to ensure that this conflict did not happen the way that it did not have to. Kiki did not have to be at this party. She wasn't central to the cast anyway. She was hardly on the show over the past few seasons. Maybe 1 or 2 episodes, maybe 2 episodes before this season. So she didn't even have to be there. So if she doesn't have to be there, could that have been avoided? That's it. Now we wouldn't even be having this conversation. And that goes to my second point. Ariane and Martell had some sort of falling out during Mother's Day. Ariane went on IG and said that, she had Martell blocked on her phone. She wasn't talking to him. That you shouldn't sleep with married men. That was her half-assed apology or acknowledgement towards Melody. She's only doing this because she had a falling out with Martell. Ariane only talks this way when she is on the outs with Martell. She's using Melody, or she's using this situation in order to take a dig at Martell. She is putting him on notice, saying, you're losing control over me. I'm going to start saying things and doing things that will make you look bad because we're not where I want us to be. Because now we're drifting apart. Because now the thrill is gone. Okay? So on Mother's Day, Ariane spent time with her son and her daughter at some event, and Martell spent time with the 4 kids at his mama's house. He's not even merging the families together for Mother's Day. I think that was the source of their argument. I don't know for sure, but I'm just speculating that the source of their argument was the fact that Martell did not want to spend Mother's Day with her, or vice versa. She didn't want to spend time with his mama, whatever the case may be. Martell is very family oriented as a Capricorn. That's something that they value. Whether they treat their children well or not, that's relative, but they love their children. The 5th house is Taurus. They're possessive of their children. They're very attached to their children because the 5th house is a fixed sign, which is Taurus, and Tauruses are very possessive. So to have a possessive sign in the 5th house of children and romance, they're possessive of their children and their romantic partners. Anyway, so Martell having the kids at his mom's house, he's very family oriented. As far as, creating a tribe, he's very tribal, okay? And I suspected that Martell would never really fully accept his illegitimate son or his side baby because he wasn't conceived within a tribe. The 4 kids are a tribe. The kids he had with Melody, they have their own little thing going on because they've had a different type of relationship. Ariane is outside of that. So now that the thrill is gone and Ariane is seen as a liability versus being an asset to him because he could use her to hurt Melody, now that that's not the case anymore, Ariane is having a difficult time dealing with this. Not even difficult time. Ariane is going to start to break rank. She's going to start to say things that would indicate that Martell is losing control over her. And she's kind of low-key using Melody to try to do that, to say, yeah, you shouldn't sleep with a married man. I've learned my lesson. I was young. What? You had the baby in your 30s. You were on Tasha K only 4 or 5 months ago. What big grand revelation did you have between then and now? Was it the fact that Martell still didn't claim you after all this time? Was it the fact that Martell doesn't want you around his family all this time? Is it the fact that you no longer have control over Martell's mind with your vagina? What happened? Where did this revelation come from? So, people like myself think that it's full of crap. Just like Ariane would say things like, Martell is a liar. Married men lie. She said this also in her life. Married men lie. You knew he was lying several years ago when you said that he was lying before you got pregnant. Ariane had a live several years ago. She said, married men are liars. These men are slinging dick out here. They are liars. Don't deal with a married man. She said this years ago before she got pregnant with this baby. So she knew the whole time that Martell was a liar. So she was okay with him being a liar as long as he was lying to be with her. Now he's lying to be with somebody else. So now it's a problem. Now he's lying to spend time with his real family in his mind, which are the other 4 Holt kids and his mama and the children who society looks upon favorably. Even though it's not Knox's fault that he was born illegitimately, unfortunately, the baby is a constant reminder of Martell's shortcomings. So he's not going to be as gung-ho to be around this baby as he could be, especially during family events. Fine. But I don't care about Ariane's apology. Yes, she can, not even an apology. It's an acknowledgement of her wrongdoing. That's not an apology. I should have stated it differently. I should have worded my statement differently. It wasn't an apology. It was an acknowledgement of fault, of wrongdoing, which is, again, giving a warning to Martell because she was lockstep with him for several years when it came to antagonizing Melody. Lockstep. Whatever he wanted her to say, she did. Like a puppet. And she submitted to him to the point where her life fell apart. So now you're in a situation where you are in a narcissistic devaluation phase where your partner is treating you like you are secondary to him or not as important as you used to be. He's putting other people and things above you. You're not any closer to a formal commitment than you were when he was married and you didn't have a baby. You're in exactly this. Actually, you're in a worse spot now than you were when he was married and you didn't have a child. Before you could walk away and say, yeah, I'm good. I've learned my lesson. But now that the baby is there, Martell doesn't feel the need to prove anything to Ariane, to work for her at all. He got her already. Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? Funky done even said it. And we all women know this. The quickest way to lose a man is to have a baby by the man. So she had the baby she wanted. She got pregnant several times. She had this baby to compete with Melody. Congratulations, you won your prize. You got the baby you wanted. Now what? We all can do what we want to do with our bodies, right? We can do what the hell we want to do with our bodies. We can fall in love with whoever we want to fall in love with. Does that mean that's what we should do? Does that mean that this is the course of action we should take? This is why there are so many issues in our community, because nobody really considers how their actions affect other people. From the drug dealers to the thoughts, okay, to the criminals on the corner, there is no consideration of how our actions affect other people. We're purely solipsistic as a culture and a community. Men don't care about cheating with their wives. Women don't care about cheating with married men. Not everybody in the Black community, but in our community, there is a very solipsistic mentality, a very self-centered, me first mentality. We don't care about how our actions affect other people or even ourselves. And then we want to blame other people for the consequences of our actions that we took. Ariane chose to engage in an illicit affair with a married man for the last 5 years of his marriage. That was her choice, and she exercised her right, her fundamental human right. God didn't stop her from sleeping with that married man, but guess what happened? She did it anyway, right? So now there are consequences for those actions. Now the married man that you've been sleeping with has been divorced for almost 2 years, or he's been separated for over 2 years, and he still hasn't claimed you. Consequences for actions. Don't blame Martell for you making the choice to be a willing side piece. And Martell cannot blame Melody for getting a divorce from him because he chose to cheat. Just like he had the right to choose to cheat, Melody had the right to divorce him. We all have our own rights. You have the right to do what you want to do, and I have the right to enforce consequences because what you're doing is affecting me negatively. Okay? So I don't think that Ariane's acknowledgement of her wrongdoing is anything more than her trying to take a dig at Martell. Because from the very beginning, Ariane has been in support of Martell. She's never really said anything negative about him like that, except the fact that he's a liar. But she's always had more smoke for Melody than she did for Martell. Now she's saying things like, yeah, I shouldn't have did this. That's going to make Martell look like he's by himself in this. You don't have her in your corner anymore. You're going to be losing your most consistent and reliable source of supply soon. I think that's the heads up that she's giving him. Now, it's going to take a couple years for them to fully separate, in my opinion, because the narcissistic cycle is, long term for the most part. And they both were willing participants, and they both have mental issues, okay? So they're going to hold on to each other for as long as possible. But at some point, it's going to become toxic, and we already see the outcome of that. And we all predicted this. All of us, content creators and people in the audience, predicted this happening. We're not surprised that they're not hanging out on certain holidays. A few weeks ago, they were all over Instagram and social media because, in my opinion, Martell saw Hill Harper tell Melody on IG that he loved her. So Martell wanted to compete and use Ariane in a way to say, yeah, I'm in love with her too. We're public now. We're together now. He's still competing with Melody. So Hill Harper and Melody were talking, whatever they were doing. They had a friendship. Hill Harper basically gave her a lot of compliments and praises and roses and things like that, lots of gifts, whatever the case may be. And then, Martell is all of a sudden on live with Ariane for the first time ever. She's hanging on to him like an alligator hunter, and he's just smiling and cheesing for the camera. And she's like, what's understood doesn't need to be said. Well, what we do understand is the fact that you're in a narcissistic relationship with a narcissist, and you're going through the cycle of devaluation, which precedes discard. Once he discards you, he's going to, leave you alone for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, or whatever. Basically, dangle false promises to Ariane to keep her emotionally invested in him while he does what he wants to do. Then he finds somebody else that he's interested in. Then he's going to play her ghost. Then he'll get bored with the new girl. Then he'll go back to her. It's the same old cycle that he was doing when he was married. So why would it be different now? We all have choices, right? You can do what you want to do. You can fall in love with a married man, right? Martell can fall in love with somebody outside of his marriage or fall in lust. He can use somebody else to satisfy his needs outside his marriage. And so now there are consequences to that. Doesn't mean you have the right to do what you want to do. It just means that if you want specific outcomes in your life, you don't do certain things. Your actions have to be in alignment with the consequences or the outcomes that you're looking for. That's all I have to say about this for now. Thank you guys for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.